Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2026 House elections, and I'll be answering a question that I'm sure a lot of you are asking right now. Do the redraws in Texas and potentially Ohio have a real chance at costing the Democratic Party control of the House next year? Now, it is a midterm election, excuse me, and that means that the party out of power is favored to win back the House. And that's pretty common. Republicans were favored to win back the House in 2022. They ended up doing it, although by a smaller margin than most people expected. In 2018, Democrats were favored to win back the House, and they ended up doing just that. And Democrats entering 2026 broadly are in a decent spot because they already came close to winning the House despite losing the presidency. And in theory, they only have to gain a couple of seats to win it back. Now, that is complicated because of recent developments in Texas and Ohio. I have made a detailed video analyzing the changes made to the Texas map. I released it yesterday. Go give it a look if you're interested. I'd certainly recommend it because I do go through exactly what changed, and I take you through the partisan composition of all the seats. But on this map, what I've done is I've filled out how the districts are very likely to vote. Obviously, this map is not the proposed map that's going to change, but I've adjusted the seat tallies accordingly. So the light red seats are the seats Republicans are almost certainly going to flip. And then we have two yellow seats, which are obviously in the competitive column, which have been redrawn for Democrats, but are still very competitive. And then in Ohio, it's less competitive. My expectation, we don't know the map yet, but my expectation is that Democrats are going to be, or Greg Landsman, the incumbent Democrat in Cincinnati, is going to be drawn into a pretty safe seat that he'll win decisively. And then Republicans are going to win back these two seats up here that can be drawn more favorably towards them. And so I'm also aware of the possibility that California and maybe New York redraw their maps. California seems actually somewhat likely to do that at this point. New York less so because there's more kind of hoops to jump through. But I have not accounted for that in this video. So this is kind of a bad scenario for Democrats where they're unable to respond in New York or California, but they're still losing seats in Ohio and Texas. And so, as you can see, per my tally, Republicans are very likely to win 197 seats. Obviously, if you come back a year from now and Republicans lose one of the 197 seats I have as red, it's definitely possible. Some seats get more competitive as the election goes on, but based on what we know now, I think this is a pretty fair assessment of where the map stands. Same for the 188 Democrats. And that's really where I want to kind of start us off here, because I view and I didn't do this on purpose to just make it top 50, but I think there are 50 seats that you could, reasonably argue are competitive. Some of them more so than others, obviously, but that's just kind of the way it works. And overall, what I do think is worth noting as we start looking through this map is that Republicans have kind of created an advantage for themselves because they have 197 seats. And if you flipped 5 of those seats, they'd have 192, and Democrats would have 193. So, obviously, Republicans, assuming that Democrats are unable to redraw in California and New York, which is kind of a big assumption at this point, it may very well happen. They certainly gain, but it is enough to put them over 218. So they still have to win 21 competitive of these 50 seats, and the majority of these seats are probably a bit more favorable to Democrats just given the environment. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can get Democrats at 218 and how reasonable that is. And we're just going to start by looking at kind of the low-hanging fruit on this map. And by that, I mean the seats that are probably most easy for them to win. I think a good place to start is probably Nevada. And we're just going to label these all as lean just to kind of differentiate so you can look at the end. But Nevada, these are seats the Democrats won in 2024 as Donald Trump lost the state. Susie Lee was the closest race. She only won by 2. But Titus and Horsford both won by pretty good margins, right? They were both 7, 8-point victories. Or actually, both are 8-point victories. So they weren't that close. I don't think Republicans are going to seriously contest any of them except for maybe Susie Lee. But beyond that, these are seats Democrats should hold, although I do think it's worth noting that Joe Lombardo running for governor could probably complicate that a little bit. And then I think another seat Democrats are probably going to win is Nebraska's 2nd, where Don Bacon is retiring, and this is a seat that voted for Kamala Harris presidentially. So I expect that one to flip, to be honest. Another good seat Democrats should hold is going to be in Michigan's 8th, where in 2024 it was open, but Chris McDonald-Rivet held it for the Democratic Party here. And this was actually despite, I've pulled up 2024 presidential numbers thanks to thedownballot.com. You should go check them out. It's really a useful resource. But as you can see, McDonald Rivet won a seat that actually voted for Trump by around 2%. Trump got 50%. Harris got 48% here. So she's a good enough incumbent that she'd probably win. Although, like again, this seat is more red federally down ballot, like in gubernatorial races, it's more favorable to Democrats. And then going up to, kind of the Northeast, Democrats should probably hold on in New Hampshire's. I think this is their first. I always get them mixed up. I think this is the first district. It's an open seat, but in 2024, Chris Pappas, who's running for Senate now, won it by 8%. And the other thing worth noting is that Kamala Harris, obviously, she also won this seat. So it's hard to see Democrats losing a ton of Harris seats they don't already hold. And then in New York, Democrats, Pat Ryan and Josh Riley should probably hold on to their seats. These are a bit more competitive just because Kathy Hochul's running for re-election at the top of the ticket. That'll probably hurt Democrats a little bit. But overall, Democrats won both of these seats, right? Like, as you can see, Josh Riley won by 2, Pat Ryan won by 14. Pat Ryan did really well. He put up a crazy, I mean, like if you just look at the presidential margin in this district, this is actually something people don't talk about a lot, but Pat Ryan, he's in the 18th. This was a Harris plus 3 district that he won by 14, which is crazy impressive. Josh Riley basically matched Kamala Harris, but he was running against a pretty strong Republican incumbent. Both these seats should hold for Democrats, even though Kathy Hochul might not do all that well at the top of the ticket. And then lastly, if we take a look at these 2 seats in Long Island that are kind of held by Democrats, you can see Tom Suozzi won by 4, Laura Gillen won by a little over 2. I think Gillen's in a bit more competitive of a race, but I think she should still probably win re-election. But for now, I'm going to give Suozzi the win. Going over to Pennsylvania, I'm not going to touch any of these seats kind of in the eastern part of the state just yet, but I do think at this point Democrats should probably flip the 10th district. Now, this is kind of a take you might not be expecting from me. Democrats lost the seat in 2024, but this was despite the fact that this was a Trump district. And by the way, this is not like a right-trending working class seat that Trump has done uniquely well. And this is a seat that Donald Trump, while he won it by 5%, the seat's trending Democratic federally. It's gotten bluer in the past decade. John Fetterman nearly won it. Josh Shapiro won it in 2022. And the interesting thing here is that Scott Perry, despite the fact that he's a Republican incumbent in a left-trending seat, he underperformed Trump by like a full 4%, which is a pretty bad showing for him. Democrats are going to put a lot of money in here. And by the way, 2024 was an absolute red wave in Pennsylvania, just to kind of point that out. I think Republicans had their best election night in Pennsylvania in at least since 2010, just to be honest. And despite that, they nearly lost the 10th district. I'd be pretty surprised if Democrats didn't flip this back. Like if to me, this is a seat that if Democrats aren't flipping it, they are in serious trouble. Which, maybe we can have that conversation, but I think for now, I'm going to assume Democrats flip it. And then going down to Virginia, obviously the incumbent Democrat there in Vindman, he won by 2% in 2024. Republicans kind of contested this seat. They thought it was getting close at the end. Kamala Harris didn't do super well in Virginia. She did well enough, but Democrats should probably hold on to that seat as well. And then kind of just scanning here, it's getting a little trickier. I'm just going to bet on Democratic incumbents at this point that are in safer seats, like Gabe Vasquez in New Mexico's 2nd District. He had a pretty good result in 2024. He did quite well. He won by 4% against the former incumbent here in Yvette Harrell. I don't think Harrell's running again, so Vasquez should probably win re-election there. And then, going over to some other Democrats in California, Josh Harder and Adam Gray both were very close in 2024 to losing. Josh Harder's the incumbent. Adam Gray flipped a seat. Adam Gray, by the way, this is a performance people don't talk about enough. Adam Gray flipped it. He beat, this is a Republican incumbent in John Duarte. And if you look at presidentially, this is a seat that Kamala Harris really dropped the ball in. I mean, in the 13th district, she lost by well over 5% here. And this is a Biden plus 12 seats. So this was like a 17-point swing right. And despite that, Adam Gray won, which is pretty, that's a pretty impressive result against a GOP incumbent. So this seat's definitely, the partisanship of it's getting really bad for Democrats, but Adam Gray is a good enough incumbent. I think short-term he'll probably hold on. Same with Josh Harder in the 9th district. So those are 2 Democrats I'd probably bet on winning at this point. And then you can make the case for the 45th board and actually come back to that. So Democrats should probably be winning 202 seats. And I'm actually going to take this one step further by adding 2 more seats to that column, which are going to be Texas 28th and North Carolina's 1st. Now, North Carolina's 1st is where we're going to kind of start with here. Don Davis, the Democratic incumbent, won by just under 2% in 2024. As you can see, this seat was very close presidentially. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, almost got essentially the same. Hold on, I scrolled past it. Of course I did. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were within 3% here. Actually, it was a little more than 3%. So Don Davis did actually win a Trump seat, which is pretty impressive. The reason I think he'll hold on, even though the district is a right-trending one, is that Democrats, I would say that even if they don't win the Senate race here with Roy Cooper, I think Cooper's almost certainly going to outrun Kamala Harris. I think if he loses, it'll be by more like 1 instead of the 3% margin Harris lost by. That should be enough for him to carry the district statewide, or at least come close to it. And Don Davis is a strong incumbent, would probably hold on. The margin might be close, but I feel pretty good about Davis winning. And then Texas is 28th. This is a seat that obviously just got redrawn. But Henry Cuellar, who, by the way, is in legal trouble, so he might not be able to run again. But Henry Cuellar, assuming he can run again, it's probably favored. Obviously, the seat got redder presidentially, but down ballot, if you look at the House vote, it actually got about 2% bluer. So you could actually argue that the seat is more favorable to Cuellar than 2024's was. And if he's able to run for re-election, he'd probably be favored at that point. So 204 Democrats. And now we're going to look at the Republican column. We're going to see what we can give to the GOP here. Now, again, start with the low-hanging fruit. We're going to work our way across the map. Republicans should probably hold on in Virginia's. I think this is Rob Whitman's seat, who won by 12% in 2024. And this seat wasn't that close presidentially either. This is a left-trending district, so I don't think Kamala Harris underperformed by that much here. But let's see if we can find. As you can see with Whitman, this was still it was still a Trump plus 5 seat. That's that's close presidentially, but Whitman is a good incumbent, and I do value incumbency. We saw that a lot of Democrats in South Texas or in California did pretty well relative to Harris, and I think Rob Whitman's a good enough incumbent. He'll probably hold on. Going over to the Midwest, a couple seats here, here and here. These are just 2 seats that Donald Trump won with good Republican incumbents in Brian Steele and Bill Huizenga. The GOP should probably hold on to these seats. Going over to the Northeast, not a ton here. Brian Fitzpatrick's seat in Pennsylvania was pretty not close in 2024. He won by 12%, but there are obviously whispers of a potential primary challenge to him because he did vote against the big, beautiful bill. That's probably going to upset the base a little bit, but I'd still bank on him winning that primary and obviously winning the general election. But if he does lose the primary, the seat immediately becomes a lot more competitive. I think I should actually fill this out for Democrats at this point, but I think Republicans are probably going to win Polina Luna's seat. I mean, she won by 10% in 2024. This is a seat that isn't super right trending, but also isn't left trending enough to bank on her losing. And Kamala Harris didn't do all that well here either. So I'm actually going to keep that in the Republican column. And then obviously you have seats like in Alaska statewide, where unless Mary Peltola, it's very candidate dependent. Mary Peltola lost by 2% in 2024, which was pretty. I'd say that's one of the worst losses Democrats have suffered because she's basically the only Democrat who can win statewide races like that. I think she's going to run for governor, so for now I'll keep it in the Republican column, but it's a lot more competitive if she goes for kind of a rematch with Nick Begich. And then, the Republicans should also hold on in Montana. They should win this first district here. They won it by 5% or by 7% in 2024, and I don't know if Monica Tranel is going to run again. And then lastly, a couple of seats that I'm noticing here in Missouri's 2nd district with Ann Wagner. The GOP won by 12, although Democrats didn't really contest this seat. It'll probably narrow up a fair amount in 2024, but nonetheless, Wagner's a good incumbent, and I think she's going to hold on there. And then just kind of scanning here, Southern California, I think Young Kim's going to hold on. Democrats have landed a pretty good challenger to her there, but Young Kim still won by 10% in 2024. And this is a seat that, if we look at the presidential lean, you can kind of see why I have this perspective. Here we go. California 40, Young Kim. This was a Trump plus 2 seat after having voted for Biden in 2020. And Kim was able to win by 10. So not only did the seat kind of move a little bit towards Trump, but Kim put up another good performance at the top of compared to the top of the ticket. So as you can see here, we've kind of eliminated half of our competitive seats, and it doesn't really get that good for Republicans. They're basically tied after they had a 9-seat lead before we did the competitive ones. Now they're at a 1-seat lead. And again, this isn't accounting for California potentially redrawing as well as maybe New York. And so now we're going to kind of have to look at how the House seats are going to break. So we're going to see if it's easier to get Democrats to 218 or Republicans to 218 by just going through these competitive seats. Maine second to me is really close. I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to punt on that one. I think Democrats and Republicans are going to split these last 2 New York seats. Again, for more reasoning, I'll release the House prediction that's more official once I see the finalized maps from from California, Texas, Ohio. But for now, that's where I'm going to go. I think Democrats are probably going to win back the seat in Pennsylvania. Not probably, but I think they should be favored to win back the seat in Pennsylvania in the 7th district, but they might lose New Jersey 7th district. Virginia, too, I'm really indecisive on. I think Democrats are going to split with Republicans in Michigan, so that's going to be the 7th district's going to stay blue and then, or going to flip blue, and I think Republicans are going to hold on in the 10th district. Wisconsin's 3rd. Democrats did pretty well here in 2024. I'd expect them to flip it, actually. Iowa, I guess I'll be bold here and I'll pick Democrats to win both these seats just because we have kind of some early signs of a blue wave in Iowa specifically. That doesn't mean the Democrats are going to crush it nationally, but I think Iowa, for whatever reason, is really hostile to Republicans right now. And then going to South Texas, I'll be generous to Republicans. I'll bet on Gonzalez to lose. I think Democrats are probably going to split Colorado with the Republicans as well. So as you can see, it's still pretty close. Arizona, these two seats are really weird. Just to kind of go in depth on them for a second, Republicans won them by 3 and 4% in 2024. If you look at the presidential margins, Democrats did not do themselves any favors here. Kamala Harris lost the first by 3, even though this was a Biden seat, and then she lost the 6th by 1, which was, this seat actually didn't move that much. Harris only did about a point worse than Biden. So I think maybe because Engel lost by less, she might flip the seat, and then Schweikert's going to hold on. I don't know. These seats are very close. I think Democrats are more likely to win both than lose both, but I'll split them for now. And then, obviously, California, if there's no redraw, the GOP, they'd probably hold on to Kylie's seat, and I think Democrats would also be unable to flip the 27th, or the 21st. No. This isn't the 20. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. This is the 22nd district. What am I saying? And then these two seats in Southern California, I think Derek Tran, who won in 2024, would probably hold on, even though because he ran against a strong incumbent. And then Ken Calvert, who's not that great of a performer. I mean, if you look at his seat, he only won by 4 in a seat that Donald Trump carried. Let's see if I can find the margin. Donald Trump carried his seat by 6%. So he's, and that's a seat that should be down ballot, more Republican. I think that'll hurt him. And so then, as you can see, control of the House, Democrats have a bit of an advantage here. But control of the House comes down to 3 seats. These are all Trump seats, but 2 of them are held by Democrats. If you made me bet, I'd say Democrats hold on in Ulican Perez's seat, in that they lose in Maine's 2nd district. Then to me, this is the most competitive race of 2024's House cycle. I might make a video on this district specifically. Maybe I'll go with the incumbent here and I'll give it to the GOP super narrowly. But as you can see, even with the redraws in Ohio and Texas, I'm not super bullish on Republicans to hold the House. So thank you for going through this exercise with me, because this is kind of now where I can talk about what this all means. This is a very narrow majority, and I don't think Democrats would be super happy if they won a 1-seat majority in a midterm, because they'd only be gaining 6 seats, which isn't all that impressive. They'd be gaining 3 seats, not 6 seats. Obviously, it would technically be 8 if you account for the Republican redraws. But this is what I'm saying, right? The redraws, in terms of the bigger picture, help Republicans only to a certain extent, because it doesn't change the House too much, right? And by the way, this map doesn't account for if Democrats gain 5 to 6 more seats in California or gain another 2 seats in New York, right? So you can certainly argue that the redraws aren't going to have too big of an impact. For now, my guess is that California kind of cancels this out with a pretty aggressive Democratic gerrymander, which I will make a video on if or when it happens. And that means that the House doesn't change a lot from how it would have been a month ago. The only thing that changes is that we get fewer competitive districts, which I think is objectively a bad thing. I like competitive districts because they force politicians to be accountable and to, try to at least pretend to appeal to more than one block of voters. It forces them to be less lazy and be more active, and it kind of incentivizes them to try to be productive in Washington. Obviously, that's not true for all politicians, but generally speaking, the politicians in swing districts try to at least put on a facade of being productive and bipartisan to a certain extent. So getting rid of competitive districts isn't great for the people that live there. I think people that live in competitive, like people who live in swing states, are really catered to by their parties, by both parties, and I think that's something that the more competitive areas you have, the better it is for people. Although I will say, if California redraws and we get a bunch of safe Democratic seats, it makes my job easier. It means I have to do less research on competitive districts, but that's to the detriment of the people who live in those seats. So anyways, that's what I think about this. I do not think that these redraws are actually going to cost Democrats the House, at least as of now. although it does make their ability to get a bigger majority harder. So, again, please let me know what you think. Let me know what you're expecting from 2026 in general, and I'll see you all next time.